and he's just, he talks about, this being the last stadium that he's had to play in the NFL, and that he imagines the streak hopefully going on until he decides it's time to end, which may be next year. According to him, I think he was kind of saying that in jest, but, it took probably 5 minutes to get to a legitimate football question, and then it was about how the run game worked last week. It should, in my opinion, the answer should have been, that's last week, and we're trying to figure out a way how to build on it.
Exactly.
That was not the answer, and that's cause for concern. He's one of the leaders of the team, and everybody wants to talk about last week and, building on it. Yeah, you better, but you could go about it a completely different way. So the vibe I'm getting is that they know they have to pull a rabbit out of their hat, probably 6 or 7 rabbits out of the hat to try and win this game against Seattle. So they're going to continue to bask in the glory of whatever success they can get until they get up to Seattle and try to play the Seahawks on Sunday.
Because it could come crashing down real fast. You're listening to The Doghouse, your inside look at the Cleveland Browns. Andy McNamara alongside Browns Insider from WKYC Sports in Cleveland. Matt Fleur-Jancic on Twitter at AndyMC81 at Matt Fleur-Jancic. Our Twitter question is, who has more to prove this Sunday, Johnny Manziel or Russell Wilson? Coming off the comments from Coach Pettin saying that Russell Wilson is not elite and is more of a game manager or a product of his system. Now, a little history on these two teams facing each other. Seahawks lead the all-time series 11-6, but Cleveland has won the last 2 outings, including a 6-3 win when they last met on October 23rd, 2011. The other one came all the way back in 2007. That was an overtime 33-30 victory. So the only guy who has been around on the roster to play both of those has been Joe Thomas. That's, I think, right, Matt? That makes sense, right?
He's the only one that's played them both, and I think it's just him and Alex Mack and Joe Hayden that have been around for even one game against the Seahawks.
Right.
I think it's only those 3 guys, maybe a sprinkling of a couple others that have played the Seahawks while in a Browns uniform. I mean, that's how much turnover the Browns have had in the last 4 years.
Oh, sure. Now, for the Seahawks, we know that when it comes to the running game, and it hasn't hindered them really, but they're facing a slew of injuries and are kind of in plug-and-play mode, but they've still done enough. And Russell Wilson, of course, as we said, 16 touchdowns and no interceptions. He's playing unreal. And you mentioned the wide receivers, all undrafted guys, Matt. And what frustrates me to no end in the NFL, and it seems in particular with the Browns, whether it's trying to copy the Patriots or now the Seahawks under Ray Farmer, is when you try to emulate a system. Sometimes you just can't copy it word for word, player for player. The Browns have tried to get ex-Seahawks. They got McQuiston last year, a lineman. He burned out. You waited all that time for Turbin, and you cut Terrell Pryor for him. Then after 2 games, you cut Turbin. Just build your own identity. You don't have the personnel. You don't have the coaching staff. You don't have the culture to be the Seattle Seahawks right now. That's what drives me nuts. You try to copy something when you don't have the means, the talent, or the know-how on how to actually do it.
Well, there's a reason why those guys are ex-Seahawks, because the Seattle system got what they could out of them, and then they moved on.
Yeah.
The guys I start worrying about are the guys that the Browns let walk out of the building, guys like Jabal Sheard, who Bill Belichick gushed about like nobody I've ever – I mean, I don't think Bill Belichick gushed about his own kids that way, when he talked about Jabal Sheard. So I kind of look at that and say, that's in and of itself the reason why this franchise is where it is.
Right.
They try to copy other people's mold, and the Seahawks are exactly the mold that the Browns are trying to get, because if you hear Ray Farmer every press conference when he's asked about, Ray, why aren't you drafting wide receivers? Well, the Seahawks don't have to do it. Yeah, but the Seahawks also have playmakers in other spots. You do not.
And their franchise quarterback.
If you look at their wide receivers, they're at least above 5'8". And one of the guys was somebody you cut 2 years ago.
Oh, stop.
Out of training camp, another undrafted free agent that should have caught 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl and would have been in line for an MVP vote or 2 had Seattle won the game.
Yeah, you had to bring that up. It's so painful.
I watched the kid in training camp every day, and I looked at him and I said, I wished he flashed more because I know he's not going to usurp anybody that's currently on the roster, but this kid is physically gifted. And, he never really got a chance to prove himself. And, whatever he did show on tape, boy, the Seahawks sure liked because they had him at a pretty good role in the biggest game of the year.
Yeah, not bad. Okay, Matt, you know what? Before we get to our AFC North picks of the week, let's get to our Twitter question this week. And again, it is called the Bark-Off. You send your tweets in at AndyMC81, at Matt Florjancic. Our Twitter question this week: which quarterback has more to prove Sunday, Johnny Manziel or Russell Wilson? Matt, who has more to prove?
Johnny Manziel, no question about it. Russell Wilson's a two-time NFC champion, 3 times straight division champion in the NFC West, and he's a 2-time Super Bowl quarterback. Should be a 2-time back-to-back Super Bowl winning quarterback, but he's not because of one play that the Patriots made last year. So there's no doubt in my mind that Russell Wilson has proven that he can be a leader of men, and Johnny Manziel has proven that he can be a leader of the party.
It's a leader of something, Matt. Leader of some. On Twitter, at Casey_Dawson says Johnny Football has more to prove. So he's going Johnny Football as well. I think you have to go Johnny Manziel simply because it's a second consecutive start this season. You need to see what he can do. But from a big picture look, I think Russell Wilson also has a lot to prove. And it's not to, one, it's to shut up Mike Pettin, which I am horrified to see what damage he's going to do against this Browns defense and secondary. Joe Hayden, by the way, placed on season-ending IR. So he's gone for sure with those concussions. But for Russell Wilson, can he continue this dominant play? Because if he continues this way now into the playoffs, and whether he wins another Super Bowl this year or not, then when you enter next season, you have to have the legitimate conversation about whether he is in the top 5, if he is in a truly elite top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. So I think from that sense, from a broader perspective, Russell Wilson does have a lot to prove. But for Johnny, listen, this defense is something else. Top run defense. We know the Legion of Boom, the secondary, is ridiculous. If he can put out a above average effort, and by that, Matt, I mean I don't expect him to put up 25, 30 points. I just don't. But if he doesn't turn the ball over himself, if he maybe gets a touchdown, no interceptions, and can move the ball and they just lose, I think that is going to be progress. You need to see continued progress from Johnny Football against an upper echelon opponent. And they'll have to do that this week, and then they'll have to go into Kansas City, the 2 loudest stadiums in the NFL, next week. So these next 2 games are so vital for the progression of Johnny Manziel. What does Johnny have to do in your mind, Matt, to, even if he doesn't win the game, to show that, hey, okay, he's still developing?
The individual stats are nice. Obviously, that is part of the component, but the offense has to at least be able to move down the field consistently and be competitive. They did against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they still only scored 9 points.
Right.
In my opinion, to show true progress, you have to get 14, 21 points, and that's against anybody. But if you do it against a legit defense like Seattle, knowing full well that you're probably not going to have the same type of rushing performance that you had against San Francisco,
no,
because it took you 5 years to do it as good as you once did it, that to me will show the most progress. If he can get in the end zone a couple times, that'd be great, because I hear all this talk about, he looked good, he progressed, and, I've written stories about how individually he's shown progression, but the team around him hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
They still only score once a game, so they have to find a way to hit pay dirt more than once, and I'm not talking field goals, I'm talking touchdowns. You have to find a way to cap drives with scores. To me, that's the next logical step in the progression for Johnny Manziel. You can put up all the individual stats that you want, but if you still get blown out, it doesn't matter. Josh McCown put up a ton of stats too,
sure,
and the Browns still ended up with only 1 win in his starts.
Well, Johnny now 2-2 as a starter this season. You mentioned field goals, Matt, and I hope they don't rely on field goals, because Cleveland has had 3 field goals blocked 3 games in a row, and it came out now. All right, the Loft is not high. The trajectory is too low on Travis Kuhn's field goal kicks. Now, do you see that as the main problem, or the fact that Chris Tabor has Danny Shelton and Cam Irving lined up beside each other, and they keep getting blown up on just about every field goal try?
I'm not one to analyze kicking because I don't necessarily understand all the finite details that go into it, but if Chris Tabor tells me that Travis Coons is striking the ball too high, I'm going to believe him, but I still would contend that kicking the ball too high and getting a low trajectory on it is only part of the equation because Cam Irving's on his backside more often than he's upright. So that is a big problem to me.
Yeah.
And I did notice that after they got the first one blocked and it was returned for a touchdown in the loss to the Ravens, he was questioned heavily about why not using Joe Thomas and Alex Mack on special teams, and Joe Thomas was out there on a field goal protection the next week. So they are trying to make adjustments, but they're making it to the wrong side because Joe Thomas was in on the right side and the left is where they've been having the multitude of trouble. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think the kicker is a little bit in his own head now because he's had one blocked in each of the last 3 games, and I think also that the blocking has been suspect, and that's probably putting it mildly.
Yeah, well, why do you have Joe Thomas is a left tackle? Why do you have him on the right side? Like, they just keep trying to be too cute, too creative for their own good, Matt. Sometimes the easiest answer, the one that's right in front of your face, is the right one because, yeah, hey, maybe that trajectory is low, but you watch the replays, guys are bursting through the line and getting their hands up. If you have better protection, that really doesn't happen. So I think, too, it's a combo of both. What's interesting, Matt, is Phil Dawson, Phil the Foot, arguably the best Brown since the team has returned, and that's sad to say because it's a kicker, was back in the building, his first trip as a visitor last week. His contract is up at 40 years old, and he was saying he feels he could play a little bit more. I wonder if maybe on a 1-year deal and maybe you keep Coons as a kickoff guy, comes in, mentors the young kid, and Phil goes out as a Brown. Probably too expensive for a Ray Farmer Browns team. They like the cheap undrafted guys, but what a story that would be.
As much as I would like that from a selfish standpoint, because I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for Phil Dawson, I want him to play on a winning team that can win the Super Bowl, not just get to the postseason.
Yeah. I
believe he's earned it, and I don't want to see his career end with a 2-14 campaign where he scores 100 points, but the team only scores 350. I think he's earned the right to go out as a winning or on a winning team, and I would hope that somebody who's on the cusp of winning would give him a shot. Now, that won't probably come in Seattle or a Green Bay, but if New Orleans could revive themselves, they might need a kicker. Dan Bailey is pretty well set in Dallas, so I don't think there'd be a homecoming for Phil going back to Dallas, but maybe Houston needs a kicker. Somebody that's on the cusp, I would hope would give Phil Dawson a shot because, I mean, hell, even the Steelers. I mean, it pains me to say that, but, and I don't know that Phil would ever do that, but it would be nice to see him go to a team that has a legitimate shot because, in my opinion, the man has earned it, and
classy man.
He deserves to go out a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about that. You're listening to The Doghouse, your inside look at the Cleveland Browns. Andy McNamara alongside Browns insider Matt Florjancic from WKYC Sports in Cleveland. On Twitter at AndyMC81, at Matt Florjancic, presented by DraftPot.com. You can go to DraftPot.com. Terrific daily fantasy league, NFL, baseball, hockey, basketball. Type in promo code Browns when you go to sign up. They'll match up to $300 of your original deposit. And let's make our game picks here for the AFC North, Matt. And it's brought to you by Ball Sharks, at ball_sharks. They are a brand spanking new. Haven't launched yet, but they are going to be a great new site. Follow them, ballsharks.com, a daily pick'em sports site for real cash. So follow them on Twitter at ball_sharks, on online ballsharks.com. Let's go through the games here. Okay, now we have let's begin our journey in Baltimore. The Ravens hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, and Browns fans, you should be flipping to that one on commercial breaks because, well, I guess it's the early game, so you'll be able to watch it because that's who the Browns go to play next week. Matt, Ravens 4-9.